Hey guys, how you doing? My name is Carlos, and I'm here to teach you how to re-wick a stealth pod. Now, as far as I've read and as far as I've looked, I'm the first person to actually make a video on how to re-wick one of these guys. They're not meant to really be re-wicked, although if you have enough finesse and craftiness, you can actually get it done. Now, the first step is actually getting this guy open, and if you just want to know how to refill, this is all you'll actually need. If you're not really into the rebuildable section and you're not really into, changing out cotton or any of that or cleaning off a coil, then all you really need to know is just how to pop this open and refill it. So I'll show you. First thing you'll need is a pair of ceramic tweezers. So this is what I need, essentially like a small, narrow, relatively strong material to push this thing out because you don't want it breaking on you, right? So what I do is there is a small hole right about there, and on the same on the other side. So what you do is you just grab one of these guys and just push it right into those holes that are upward angle, trying to pop that bottom section out. Essentially, the idea is pop this bottom section right here out and leaving you with the empty pod to refill. So let's get it done. So let's get right down to brass tacks. First thing you're gonna need is, well, your stealth pod, obviously. Second thing you're gonna need is a nice little tiny flathead screwdriver or a regular flathead. You'll need a Q-tip, some ceramic tweezers, some little angled tweezers, your new wick, which I've already cut relatively to size. You really do not need a lot of cotton. It is a very small coil. Then a little pair of scissors, and right in here, in this little bottle cap, I have some isopropyl alcohol. Now, first thing you're gonna do is wanna crack this little bad boy open, and that's actually fairly simple. It does take a little bit, it is a little tricky and it takes a little bit of finesse, but with enough practice and doing it a couple times, you'll get it down. So you wanna grab your ceramic tweezers or something of similar size and strength so that you can do this. What you do is you locate first two small holes, one right there and one right there. And when you look at your stealth pod versus mine, you'll see that I've already kind of opened mine, sort of just for the sake of the video, so I'm not fiddling around with this for a couple minutes, which is very, very common even when you do it a couple of times. Now, like I said, you want to stick one side of your tweezer in each of those holes and slowly start to drive it open, slightly, a little bit on each side, and you'll see it slowly starts to pop out, and there is a small lip that becomes present. As you can see, these are catching on that lip. Now, what I find a lot easier to do, because some people just keep going at it, is I grab my little flathead, and just like you would apply pressure to a bottle cap to open it, you just apply leverage, and she slides right out. Now, this is the most important section, but we're gonna get to this later. The first thing we're trying to do is not get spit back. So, once you've already got this guy open, this top section does indeed come off. And it does take a little bit of finessing and a little bit of wiggling it around and a little bit of work, but eventually you can get it apart. Now in here, you'll see that it looks like there's nothing down there, and that's not true. What you want to do is you want to grab your tweezers or your angled tweezers, really anything, and fish down in there for this little gem. This little gem right here is just a cotton circle, fairly straightforward, and what it does is that absorbs any liquid that would have otherwise gotten into your mouth, and if you leave it saturated from when you last used your pod, it's not going to do its job. So what you do is you grab this, and you grab some paper towel like I have right here, and you fold it, you leave it on the paper towel, fold it over, and just dab it. Essentially what you're trying to do is you're trying to transfer the liquid from the cotton to the paper towel to dry it out. I've already done it with this one, so you can see it's pretty nice and clean. So once you've got it nice and clean like that, you just put it back in there. And notice that there is a slightly larger part on top and a slightly smaller part on bottom. That slightly smaller part you want to do at the bottom end of your mouthpiece. So essentially, it should fit in that bottom piece, just like that. Now, of course, you want to put it on the inside. So you fish it down in there and make sure it's sitting comfortably at the bottom. You don't want it crumpled up to one side, or else you're still going to have some spit back issues because the cotton won't catch it. So once you got it back in there, you're pretty much done. What you do is you fit it back on. Keep in mind that there is a right way that this goes on because you can put it on the wrong way, so make sure it sits all the way down to the O-ring. Now, we can put this aside. Now comes to the meat and potatoes of the issue, which is the coil section itself. Now, As you can probably tell, I've got a pretty bad camera, so focusing is going to be one bitch of a thing to do. But as you can see, you will have a wick port here, a wick port here, your coil sitting in the middle, and this little rubber stopper, which you can easily pop out. Now this is what you got to do to get access to your coil. You put the little stopper, pop it out, and then, I know you cannot see it well, but you have a coil sitting in there. For the sake of the video, I've already gone in and removed the excess, or removed the old cotton. One thing to note for that old cotton though is that it'll be really tight in there, and if you yank it too hard, you will deform the coil and you will ruin your pod entirely. So when you are pulling the cotton out, the used cotton, you want to make sure you pull it out small and in tiny chunks very patiently to not break the coil. Now, this coil sitting down there, as I can see, and you probably can't, it's a little gunky. So what you do is you get your Q-tip and you just soak it with a little bit of rubbing alcohol, which does evaporate at room temperature, so you want to leave it sitting for like 30 seconds to a minute. And you just want to very gently rub some of that excess carbon buildup off your coil. Now, it'll be a little finicky at first, and you can't really get all of it, so it is an imperfect system, but it's the best that we've got to re-wick. As far as I'm concerned, and as far as I know, I'm the first one to make a video on how to re-wick these guys, and I'm still learning myself. I just figured this out last night. Now, once you have your coil a little bit cleaner than it used to be, now comes the actual re-wick step. So, here I have my little wick. This, you want to make it very, very thin. If you're experienced with rebuildables like I am, a 3mm inner diameter wick is going to be far, far too large. You're looking for something similar to a 1.5 to maybe a 2mm diameter wick. That will fit relatively the best. Now, you see that it's nice and fluffy, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to gently roll it just to compress it a little bit, just to make sure it sits in there nice and comfortable, because it will slightly expand once it touches liquid again. And you want to make a nice little tail that will help you feed that through the coil. So you want to have one end that's kind of pointy like this that you can tug on, and one end that's still pretty, well, sparse, pretty cottony. Now what you do, and this does take a little bit of practice and it is a little finicky, is you want to fish this section of cotton, the small end, through the coil. Now the coil is sitting in there horizontally, meaning that you need to very gently and very, very accurately fish this little tail through that coil head. So, once you've fiddled with it for about 15-20 minutes trying to fucking string that cotton through, which, believe me, I know is a bitch, it should look a little something like this. Now, once again, I know you can't see well because I have a trash tier camera, but right in the middle here is your coil, and on either side is both of your wicks. Now, you'll see that the one that you made smaller is a lot smaller than the right one, and that's okay. What you can do is you can try to fish it through and sort of pull some more of the dense cotton through. I am kind of a lazy bastard, so I'm not going to do that. But I'll show you how it's done just so you guys know. You essentially push this cotton inside a little more, that fluffier part, and you just pull on the other side, bringing it a little more densely through. And if you can do it with enough patience and finesse, you'll see that that skinny side is actually now a little bit further out. And that fat side's a little bit further in. So what you do is, once you've finished here, you pretty much just grab your scissors and just trim off any excess. Just like that. What you do is you grab your tweezers like this, your angled tweezers, and you just gently push it in. Now make sure that it's not too tight. So one thing that you will eventually learn if you are a rebuildable person is that wicking a tank system is a bitch. If you get it too thin, you get spit back and leaking and gurgling. If you put too much cotton in, you get dry hits, and you can only take a couple of hits before the cotton's too dry, and you run into a whole bunch of issues of burning your cotton. Now, I've opted for the slightly looser method, but it'll take a couple of tries to figure out how much cotton exactly you need to get the perfect hit. So, As you can see, the coil sitting in there, surrounded by that cotton, and you just want to slowly and gently push that cotton in while still leaving it space to absorb liquid. Now, as you do with most coil heads, you are now going to prime. So, once you have it in there, nice and relatively still spongy, you take your favorite salt nic, or free-base nicotine of your choice. You know, you don't have to use salt nic. And what you do is you grab that bottle and you just start to wet that cotton. Now make sure you do so slowly, because if you over wet it as soon as you go to vape it, you will get gurgling. So just put a couple of drops on either of those wick ports. Let the cotton soak it in. Once you see it get dry again, another drop on each side. Let it soak up, and pretty much rinse and repeat until you begin to see juice accumulating on top of the cotton rather than the cotton absorbing it. That's when I find that, for the most part, right about now. So after about 3 drips on each side, 3 to 4 drips on each side, your cotton will be nice and saturated. And for good measure, just put a single drop right in the middle on that coil. Now, the reason why these coils are so great is because they're spaced. So if you're into rebuildables, you'll know that hot spotting is a big issue that you run into when your coils are very tightly packed together, which does give you better flavor. Because it's spaced, you want to make sure that each individual loop of the coil is not touching, because if you have it touching, you will have hot spotting issues, and if you have hot spotting issues, you will get burning, and you will burn your cotton and ruin the whole wick. So you want to make sure that there's at least a little bit of space between each one of those coils in the coil. And once you have it nice and done, it's fairly straightforward. You grab your tank section again, grab your juice, fill it all the way up to just before the chimney section. Right about there. You'll see how there's still a little bit of the chimney hanging out, and the juice is on either side. You grab your bottom section, and you put this aside real quick because there is one part that I missed. This little rubber stopper has to go back. Now you'll see, actually, let me show you real quick. You will see that there's a flat side, which is this side, and then a slightly raised side. This raised side is the side that goes down on top of the coil. So the way that it should end up is this right here, the flat side should go on top. So you just put it back and gently make it sit, just so it looks just like you saw it when you picked it up. Flat, no protrusion, or at least not any real protrusion. What you then do is you grab your tank, or you grab your pod, and you push it back in. And you have just successfully re-wicked a STLTH pod. I'm sorry. Now, if you guys want to see some other videos about how to re-wick some other things, I can try to figure it out for you. If you guys want to see videos on coil building, wicking in general, I am fairly experienced in that, so I could send you guys some tutorials. Anyways, that's how you re-wick it, and since it's actually already primed, I would recommend you give it 1 or 2 minutes. If you do a particularly good priming job, you don't need to wait, but I'll show you that it works. This is the same pod that I just filled. Put it in a STLTH, and now flavor will be a little off. Same with the airflow. Everything's going to be a little different than when you first got your pod, because you hand wicked it. There's going to be some inconsistencies. We're not as good as robots. So it's not going to be exactly the same, and if you use a lower nicotine juice, it isn't going to give you that same throat hit that the 35 or 50 milligram pods will. So make sure your juice is corresponding to your nicotine level. So if you're used to 35, use a 35. If you're used to 50, use a 50. Fill it with whatever juice you want. Essentially, this just gives you the ability to use these pods for a whole lot longer. And once upon a time, being a broke vapor, I definitely needed videos like this back in my day. So, hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope you have a nice day. See you later.